Greetings, my friends. This is Stan Houston once again, back on a Monday as we meet the marketplace. And it's quite a marketplace for interesting ideas. Hopefully, they're not just ideas. Hopefully, they're ideas that can help you live better starting right now. And I have a sad story. Here is the sad story, perhaps with a lesson that we need to learn. It's this: 10, 7, 4, 3, 2. That's a sad number. Those are sad numbers. Now, what in the world do I mean by that? Well, I have a story, and I'm going to tell it to you. The program, it begins with my story right now. And first of all, just before I begin, I was working in a project with a significant group that is doing some very new and exciting stuff. And one of the things they did, one of the young women who's involved in it, said that we all should watch this TED Talk. And it was about how you should do a TED Talk. Now, I've actually studied that quite a bit, and she recommended this video, and everybody said they'll go look at it, and I said, I sure will too. And it was one that I had seen before, and in fact, I'd actually done something similar like it. But the whole point of it was that it was about ideas. That if you want to have a good TED Talk, if you want to have a good talk, if you want to have a good speech, if you want to have a good podcast, it will be helpful if you'll have some good ideas. And that those ideas are not only good, they're probably helpful and useful and practical. And it was a well-done presentation. And I decided that I'm going to make one that's similar, but I've got a few things to add that may make it even a little more helpful and useful. Not that it will be better, but it will be different. And it will have some other ideas. So we're going to do that, and I will share that with you this week. How to give a good TED Talk, how to give a good presentation, how to give a good speech, how to do a good podcast. Well, here we go with my sad story. Now, part of my routine is to get up quite early, and I just kind of sit. I have my coffee ready. I have 1 cup, that's all I make, because that's it. And I just sit, and I think, and I pray, and I listen. I don't read, I just sit and think, and drink my coffee. After about an hour, I will have a small piece of bread and a small piece of cheese to finish up my coffee. Don't ask me why. I just like to do that, and that's part of my routine. And then I take a break, and then I put on my walking shoes and clothes, and I'm fortunate that in our little apartment here in North Carolina, there is a nice little lake. It's about 1.5 miles if you go around it, and then if you add the time going down to the lake, it's probably another 1/4 mile. So that means that if I get up early, and I usually do, around 6:15, 6:30, I'm on my way to the lake. And I walk the lake. And it's gotten to the point, of course, now where there are other walkers, and many times we've become friends. We greet each other, and oftentimes talk about things that we see. Truly, as one friend of mine said, starting the day with a nature walk will really be good for you. And pay attention to it. Pay attention to the trees. Pay attention to the sky. Pay attention to the animal. Pay attention to the sounds. And that's been a unique experience for me, to really make a discipline of that. One of the things I've noticed, and it's been kind of sad, is that oftentimes Sunday morning there are sirens. And I oftentimes wonder, what's up? What's happening? Why on Sunday morning is it very common for early in the morning the sirens are going, the emergency vehicles or whatever, but sirens go. I even thought about, that's kind of, that means somebody's in trouble. Somebody's off to a bad start if there are sirens on Sunday morning. But here's what I have observed, and it's just a short story. I've loved it. It is ducking season. The ducks. And we've got some geese. They are starting to bring their little ducklings into the world. And some of you perhaps know where this story is going. When I first noticed them, there she was, the mother duck. The mallard is sometimes close by, but maybe not at all. And we have a small little cabin in northern Minnesota, and we've gotten used to ducks. We like watching little ducks. We had the lake, and so I love the fact that we've got ducklings. And I counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, the little one is down by the little rock. There's 10 of them. 10 little ducklings. And I thought, how wonderful. And I continued on my walk. All right. The next day, I came by, and there they are. But there are only 7 of them now. There were 10. Where are the other 3? I looked all around. They were gone. What happened? Well, there's now 7. Well, I thought about that, and I thought, obviously something must have happened. The mother duck is obviously trying to protect them, but 3 of them are gone. All right, finished my walk. Coming down the next morning, there are the ducklings. But now there's only 4. Only 4 little ducklings. Now I'm beginning to discover, and I think I might have discovered this before, but for some reason it really struck me at this time of the year, this time of life, there were only 4. Next day, there were 4. Good! But then there were 3, and today there are 2. 10, 7, 4, 3, 2. That means she's down to obviously the replacement. Her and her mallard partner, there are just 2 left. Now what happened? Well, of course, there are a lot of big turtles in the lake. Do the turtles grab them? There are fish in the lake, but do fish, but most of them are small fish. It's just a small lake. Do they grab them? What about the hawks? There's a lot of birds. Do the hawks get them? I don't know. There is a man who comes to the lake quite often, and he is a migration watcher. I've never met one. But he's down by the lake quite often with his binoculars, and so, I asked him what he was looking for. Is he watching the birds? Oh, yes. Well, it turns out he's not only watching the birds, he is a retired gentleman, but for the last 14 years, he comes down to the lake 3 or 4 times a week, and he is charting and reporting to various wildlife services how many birds he sees. And he knows them all. How many geese, and there are different kinds, and there's a heron, and there's swans, and there's obviously ducks, and there's a variety of other ducks that come. He pointed out one little duck, and he said, those ducks actually come from Alaska, and they come down here for a milder winter. And I said, really? He said, oh, yeah. And then most of them are then going to go down to Georgia. And then they'll come back here, and then they'll go back to Alaska. They kind of look like buffaloes, and they're called buff birds. Buff birds. They've got, like a white back, and then they got a very black head, and they're really they're very little, and they're kind of cute, and fluffy. And he said they're bottom feeders, so they're always jumping up and going straight to the bottom, and that's where they get their food. I love things like this. This is paying attention. Well, just a brief lesson. First of all, one of the keys to success is paying attention to all that you can. And even though I'm not necessarily a bird watcher, I now pay more attention. I'm wondering, I have to figure out, what happened to my dear ducklings? What happened to them? But, of course, that's a life lesson. They're probably dead. The world and nature can be very cruel, and mortality can run quite high. And I think that's the deal. And so now I'm going to find out more just about the deer ducks. And, I'm reminded, as you obviously can see or hear or think where I'm going, that right again, it's sad. They didn't get a chance. They didn't get to be big ducks. Mortality happens. And it happens a lot. And in nature, it's very, very common. That's the way it is. And so for those of us who have, unlike the poor ducklings, a little more control over our destiny, we talked about design a destiny. Obviously, the little ducks don't have any real control over their destiny. We do. And perhaps maybe we should be grateful for the fact that for the most part we do have that part, that we are special creatures. At least that's the spiritual tradition that I and many of you were raised in, that those of us who get to be of the human species are somewhat different from the rest of the thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands and millions of species, that there might be something about the divine spark in us, something unique about this thing called, these people called human beings. Maybe they truly are children of God. Just a thought. Hey, there's a thought for Monday. Hopefully you found it maybe not amusing, but perhaps illustrating. And do some observations yourself, and perhaps see if, as you just go about your day, that you can find some life lessons that might work for you, and perhaps in doing so, give you a little more wisdom, insight, and truth, maybe a little more compassion, maybe some humility, and perhaps in the midst of that, give you some personal power about making your destiny and your life and your well-being better and happier as you build it yourself, do it yourself, with the help of others, perhaps with the help of the divine spark, but you do it in a way that helps others live better, to flourish, and perhaps have a good life. Maybe that's why you're here. Best and blessings to you. Until next time, I'm Stan Houston for Interesting Ideas. Bye for now.